Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Sost, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to a new episode of the Gig Economy Lounge. Sorry for the hiatus, but when business calls, business calls. That is one of the downsides of being a small business owner, even though I really love having this dialogue, producing this podcast, talking about rideshare. When business calls, but I am back for a very special edition of the Gig Economy Lounge. Today, I want to talk about something that has already obviously spread like wildfire all throughout social media and all over the news, and pretty much every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's looking to capitalize off of rideshare drivers and gig economy contractors. Dissatisfaction or attention, and that is the passing of AB5 in the state of California. For everybody outside of the state of California, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. I am quite confident in that, but I will add yet. If you are in a state that is business friendly, if you are in a state that is very clear and concise already, maybe they've already ruled in court rulings as well as in law that Uber and Lyft drivers are independent contractors, then you really have nothing to worry about. If you're in a state that's in limbo, then yes, this may be something that's on the horizon for you. Anyways, AB5 passed. Lots of people happy, lots of people unhappy. It is what it is. Either which way, it's going to be okay. The market will figure out a way to correct itself. There was taxi medallions and there was all these crazy regulations on taxis before Uber and Lyft came along. And guess what? Uber and Lyft came along, broke the mold. So, you might be asking yourself, like, what does this really mean? And I would say in the interim, so in the next 6 to 12 months, it really means nothing. It was a symbolic vote. As of yesterday, there was reports which ended up leading to Uber and Lyft stocks trending upwards by about 1.5% to 4%, depending on which one you were talking about in their stock value. And the report that came out was that the governor of California is still in talks with Uber and Lyft to come up with a deal that can amend AB5 and can essentially give them the exemption that they're looking for. In exchange, they will compromise and they will give something. Now, the first proposal was $21 an hour with a rider in the car. You can read into all the details of it, but a lot of drivers were not satisfied with it. And this is where I believe that politics has a significant downside in the negotiating process. So in this instance, and I am not an advocate for government intervention in any market matter. However, if you are going to have, let's just say, the state legislator working to regulate the contractor employee ABC test classification, then I believe that that drivers or some group of drivers or some association that speaks on behalf of, because everybody says, well, they're not allowed to unionize. There's a ton of organizations out there that claim to be rideshare associations. Whether they are or not, that's completely up to everybody that's a part of them. I consider them legitimate. But what Uber and Lyft were able to do in that scenario was propose a counter offer, or they were able to propose an offer where they seemed like they were compromising. And anywhere in terms of when you get into a public debate, when you are debating somebody on an ideal or on an issue, what normally happens, what tends to happen is one side proposes their view, the other side proposes their view, and in a public forum, you dance, let's just say, I'll call it dancing. You dance with the opponent until there's a compromise struck. So in a compromise, both sides give something up. So you can't have everything, on this side, and you can't have everything on this side. Like, you have to give something up on each side in order for there to be a compromise. In this particular situation, Uber and Lyft got the upper hand because they proposed something in the public forum that had no counteroffer come back to it. So it looks like, in the public's eyes, that, outside of the rideshare driver community, that Uber and Lyft are trying to come up with a compromise, a proposal that, gives certain things, but at the same time protects what they actually need protected, which some may say, oh, it's a sign of weakness. It shows that they're scared. It's not that they're scared. It's that they pay people really, really, really well that are really good at public politics. Tony West, look him up. Look at where he's come from. The man will literally be the leader on this issue from here till its finale. And by finale, I mean they will exhaust all legal options, which is taking everything to court. In fact, Tony West has already come out and talked about how Uber and Lyft, how they feel confident that Uber already passes the ABC test and that they have court filings backing up this assertion. Now, nobody knows what court filings they have, what court motions they've had. Court cases go a long way in determining these things. You can come up with whatever law you want, but if there is a legal precedent set before that, something in the wording of a legal ruling that states that, drivers are independent and that Uber's core business is a technological network marketplace, then they, by definition and by law, will pass the ABC test. Now, are they banking on that 100%? Absolutely not. You never put all of your eggs in one basket, which is why at least 3 companies, might even be 4, have pledged $30 million each for a ballot initiative for the 2020 election. What does this mean? This means that they are going to take their case to the public, and they are going to essentially ask the public for a special classification of workers where they are willing to give drivers X, Y, and Z, and in exchange, the drivers will remain independent contractors, and it will become a pure direct democracy vote. It'll be up and down based on the voters, and I don't believe that this will be a good place to allow this debate to get to. Mainly because once you take the issue from the arena of where it's currently sitting, which is in the legislator, and it's really focused on drivers, once it gets to the public forum, Uber and Lyft will spend copious amounts of money. And I know it's only they've committed $90 million, but I guarantee you, if they see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of if they see a path to the ballot initiative passing, they will dump unlimited amounts of cash into the initiative. You can throw the $90 million figure right out the window. I guarantee you they'll spend upwards of $500 million to get it passed if they see the path forward at that point in time. But when they take this debate to the public forum, the debate will shift from the drivers to the riders. Because Uber and Lyft know, and their legal teams know, and their PR people know that the number of riders, in relation to the number of drivers, it is at least 10 to 15 to 1. The number of riders to drivers. So what they're going to do is they're going to bring up, Miss Sally, a single mother of 2 who is in the lower middle class. She works 2 jobs and she relies on Uber and Lyft, or Uber or Lyft, shared rides or pool rides to get to and from work. Whereas before Uber and Lyft, she was often late because of bus schedules and everything else. I mean, they will find every heart-pulling, story that there is, and they will put these stories in front of the voting public. And I hate to say this, but if there is one group of people that voters care about more than workers, it is the working poor. And you can turn around and you can say, well, there are working poor drivers. And I will say, yes, there are. And I'd be willing to bet that there's more working poor riders than there are working poor drivers. 91% of Lyft drivers, 91% of Lyft drivers are on the platform 20 hours or less per week. 81% of Uber drivers are on the platform 35 hours or less per week. 51% of active Uber drivers are on the platform for 15 hours or less per week. There is a massive number of drivers that haven't spoken a word on social media. They don't interact on social media. They are literally what politicians would call the silent majority. And Uber wants these people, the ones that most likely aren't willing to go to Capitol Hill. They're not willing to go to the state capitol to voice their opinion. But guess what? In November 2020, they're already going to be in the ballot box to vote for a president, which means, you know what? They're going to vote on that initiative. I repeat, Uber and Lyft drivers do not want this issue making it on the ballot. If it makes it to the ballot, I'm calling it right now, it is over. Uber and Lyft will get whatever they propose because there will be nobody that can counter it. At that point in time, there's no negotiating with Uber and Lyft on the proposal. They put the proposal on the ballot. That means the debate or the negotiation is over. There is no more negotiating. Uber and Lyft, here's the proposal, straight up and down vote. If we get the voters on our side, bye-bye AB5 for Uber and Lyft. AB5 will obviously still be, the law of California. However, Uber and Lyft will have successfully got themselves whatever they wanted. So it's very important that if you are a driver that is looking to be a part of the discussion has to happen right now, not in 2020. Don't think for 1 second that this is over just because AB5 passed. Don't think for 1 second that even if the governor signs the bill as is and it goes into effect on January 1st, 2020, that these companies are all of a sudden going to magically just do whatever the state of California wants. That's not how this works. Like I said, look up the top people in terms of Uber and Lyft's legal counsel and public relation and public policy chairs. Look at who's in those seats, and you will see why you should not be sitting back and thinking you've won anything. You can sit there and you can turn around and you can say, well, Uber brought this on themselves. I repeat the same warning one more time. The fight has just begun. And if Uber and Lyft get this to the ballot initiative, unless there is a group that's willing to spend more money than these companies, and trust me, it's not just going to be Uber and Lyft. I guarantee you Google, Facebook, tons of companies, tons of tech companies are going to support their fellow tech companies in California. There will be copious amounts of money spent on that ballot initiative. This is not a threat. This is not a scare tactic. This is what it is. When you think back in California, back when weed was still illegal, and the state government was stubborn and no, we're not going to legalize marijuana, not even for medical purposes. What ended up happening? A group of people spent a copious amount of money and took the decision out of the state government's hands and put it in the hands of the people. This is what I would consider personal. This is me personally, what I consider a dangerous version of direct democracy, which is, we elect our elected officials to hopefully work in our best interest. However, when ballot initiatives are available, companies as large as Uber and Lyft have significantly more power than the government at that point. It's not even close to how much power they have when you're talking about organizations that literally have 140, 150 million active user base combined. You're talking about a ton of people. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I don't want anybody to think, you know what, it doesn't matter what side of the debate you're on. You could be pro AB5, you could be anti AB5. It doesn't matter. The moral of this story and the moral of this podcast is, if you want something, you have to bring it to the marketplace. You have to win in the eyes of the consumer. A dangerous move was made. Drivers put this issue in the hands of politicians, and politicians have made this issue a political issue. I strongly believe that it is a tax revenue issue, that the state of California doesn't give a damn about the drivers. All they're looking at is new tax revenue because there's more employees instead of contractors out there. But with that said, have a great day. Leave your comments down below. If you disagree with me, I love it. If you agree with me, that's cool too. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section if you see this on social media, or if you hear this somewhere, on the internet ethers of the podcast world. Let me know what you think. Have a great one.